Welcome to the Drumshed podcast, and tonight it's myself and Alex Forryan from
Hello.
RSL. From
That's right.
RSL?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. From RSL Holdings, which is the company as it's known now. Most people will know it as RSL or Rock School. My side of the business is more Rock School focused these days. But yeah, generally the same sort of thing. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from today.
Yeah. Well, we've been trying to catch up for some time, but finally we've got round to
Yeah.
having this today after meeting you again, also in the at the UK Drum Show, which was that great for you? Noisy?
It was good. It was the second time. I think I met you on the first one that I was at last year, which was really interesting. Last year we were there as RSL Awards, which is the sort of graded syllabus that most people will know or be familiar with if they've taught drums or any kind of instruments, or if they've come through that sort of graded syllabus process. This year we were there as Rock School, which is a slightly different variant of the same company. RSL Awards is like a regulated environment where you've got graded exams and you've got vocational qualifications that are governs by Ofsted and Ofqual, whereas the side of the business I work on now is much more commercially focused, looking at creating resources and sort of support network for drum teachers, across UK, Europe, and worldwide.
Excellent. I mean, that's probably quite. I'm probably quite naive about the difference between the two, so that's probably quite helpful to find out a bit more about it. Before we do talk about it, though, I know it's slightly out of focus, but for those of you that are not watching, Alex is in a shed, an actual drum shed,
I
and
literally am in the drum shed. There's a
and
kit
behind
behind
it
me.
is a kid. And I'm going to try and guess it. I
Oh, you
can't see.
won't. Oh, you
I
won't because you're
won't.
not as old as me.
Oh, hang on. I know. I'm going to guess it. You give me a bit of a clue there. It's not Colton, is it?
No, do you know what it is? It's a 70, early 70s wooden fiberglass pearl kit.
Oh, okay.
So it's a
Right.
seven ply birch with like a fiberglass inner, but it records. It's when I was teaching drums, kids would say to me, "Was it, oh, have you got a vintage kit?" And I'm like, "Yes." It wasn't when I got it, but it is now. So but it records beautifully. It really does. It's one of those kits that you just don't want to really get rid of. And I've just anything big that wants a kind of big bluesy sound, then that's what I use.
What bass drum is that a 24 or
No,
22?
it's a 22. It's a 22. It's 22, 13, and 16. And there's a
Hmm.
couple of snare drums down there. There's a big deep, like a six, like a metal six, and then metal five.
Nice. I got a feeling that I saw a post the other day from Jake up at Into Music, and I think he's got a couple of pearl fiberglass in, or was that, or was that Graham Russell? Completely two ends of the country, or two different shops. But I'm sure there's a couple
I think
knocking
Graham
about.
Russell had one. Yeah, I think it's the same color. I think it's the same. Actually, no, I don't think you're right the first time. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it, and I was like, oh, maybe I could, go for the whole collection. But no, I'll stick what I've got. There's a kit up at the house as well. I've got a slightly smaller kind of bit more of an experimental kit that's got like a 16-inch bass drum, 14-inch floor tom, and then you got like sort of like just it's like a couple of snare drums. Like I built a little 12-inch snare drum and a little 10-inch snare drum that sort of just do some sort of drum and bass and trappy stuff up there. I just like
Yeah.
making it's fun actually when you've got like these days it's everyone digs into the digital sound recreation, but I still quite like experimenting with different kits and different heads to see what I can conjure up, especially down here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go off on little tangents, but you just say that about electric kits. So in my house at the moment is a TD-17 set up, a Roland kit,
Mm.
because I've just set it up because I'm going to sell it. Um, so I'm just cleaning it all up, make sure all the bits are together. It's not a off the shelf TD-17. It's kind of been put together by buying different parts of it. So, but not to get rid of it, to get rid of electric. But I'm going to get another. I'm going to get one of the new ones that Roland's just brought out.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
nice.
and they're really nice. But the thing is, I like both, and in behind me is a 16-inch bass drum with a 10 and a 13, the little Sona AQX,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah,
which,
yeah.
which is one of the lower ones. Well, it is the lowest one I think they have. Um,
They're great
but
value for money though, aren't they? They're
I,
incredible.
the metalwork on that kit is exactly the same as it is on the AQ2, which
Yeah,
is a more maple kit. And this isn't popular, I think. But I've recovered it. I stripped it off the black wrap and I've veneered it with an applewood veneer.
nice.
And it looks very different. It looks. but it still sounds great. And I've just put some new Evans heads on it, which is a bit new for me, and really loving it. So yeah, I'm
That's great.
surprised to hear you say drum and bass though. That's great because I'm obsessed with a bit of drum and bass.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like, like I come from, I mean, I've been playing drums 51 years. So during that time, I've played lots of different styles and lots of different bits of music. And then obviously you take sort of some of the sort of drum and bass stuff and some of the jungle beats. They're obviously, loads of sort of funky drummer and Stubblefield kind of grooves that are just sped up or
Yeah,
messed around with, which is fun to do anyway. It's steeped in jazz. I come from a big band jazz background. When I was younger, I did like sort of county youth jazz orchestras and national youth jazz orchestra, European youth jazz orchestra. So I was grew up sort of thinking I was going to be Buddy Rich. That was the plan. It's only when I left school that found the world didn't need another Buddy Rich at the time, so they had to go and do other styles of music. But that's I come from that sort of heritage. So for me, when you start re-engineering and sort of back engineering some of those grooves and stuff, they all make complete sense. And it's that same skill base. It's the same sort of slightly softer grooves, lots, working around the snare drum to get different sounds, working from a ride cymbal, creating different sounds from a ride cymbal. For me, it's drum and bass, jungle, jazz, bebop. It sits in the same. It's in the same area, really.
yeah, yeah, very much. Yeah, are you a bit of have you a bit of a Spaven fan? Have you paid a bit of attention to him?
Yeah. I mean, a genius. He was working with some friends of mine a couple of years ago, and some of the stuff that I was doing some of the live stuff, and he'd done some of the recorded stuff. I was phenomenal. Yeah, it was great, and it was again a learning curve for me. It was like this a different approach to playing stuff. But yeah, genius, absolutely, genius player. And all those new players. I mean, it's even UC Days on. We've got some of UC Days into the grade 8 syllabus on the RSL syllabus now, and it's
Yeah,
just nice to be able to reference new styles of playing, different stylistic approaches, still steeped in that technical knowledge that we completely believe in, but you're just using it in a different way, and it's pushing that message where like you're practicing rudiments, you're practicing technique, but without a destination, it becomes a bit blunt. But the minute you give it some agency and say, right, these are the things that you're learning, and these are how you can apply them in different grooves and different styles, then it opens up all sorts of different doors for drummers. And that for me, having been playing for a long time, it's lovely seeing new drummers. When people come and they've discovered a new style of drumming, and you're like, yeah, it's very similar to this. Let me show you this, and suddenly
yeah,
it all makes you're kind of connecting all the dots.
yeah. I mean, I've got the grade 8 book here actually, and Yusuf is in there. Uh, I mean, I'm not a young lad, and I mean, when drum and bass was happening in the 90s, I was I think I went to Ministry of Sound, and I was into like LTJ Bookham and all that kind of stuff, and Alex Reese and
Yep,
Ronnie Size, and I
yep.
loved all that stuff, and then I kind of kind of I suppose got on with other parts of my life, and then come recently when I hear about Spaven, it just feels like, oh great, so he's doing it for real, rather than breaks and loops and stuff,
Exactly. Yeah.
and and it's so like familiar but different and new but old, like excitingly new but familiar and comfortable from a day from days
That's the thing,
before.
from yeah, Matt, I totally agree. That's exactly, and for me, it was, you know, uh, it wouldn't have been a natural follow through for me. But then again, I'm as old as hip hop, so like all those kind of break beats have existed as long as I have. So we've kind of matured together. So
Mm.
for me to drop a break beat into something now makes sense. Now this you've got that flexibility to create those drums or buy those drums to make those sounds. I think every time you hear that kind of, especially that sort of going back to those like really small high pitched snare drum sounds that you can drop little break beats into a groove. I don't know. You're just opening up loads of different tonal options that I didn't have when I was younger, but now are so sort of ubiquitous for all drummers to experiment with. I just think it's a really rich time for acoustic kit players. Yes, the digital thing is completely relevant from a teaching point of view. There's an argument to say that for a majority of your students' time should be on a digital kit because you want to protect people's ears, and manage that sort of sound dose. But I mean, there's still nothing like getting onto a real kit and creating different sounds and different sort of tonal colors that we can these days. I mean, one of the things, I don't know if you noticed this, but the different cymbal options at this year's drum show were just phenomenal. There were just so many, that back in the day it was paste, Paiste, Zildjian, Sabian. That was your options really.
Yeah, yeah,
But these days there was some really, really high quality cymbals on from makes that I'd never heard of.
yeah,
Um, it was just fantastic, really, really interesting.
yeah. I mean, I'm a. I would consider myself. I love that quote, by the way. I'm as old as hip hop. I think you should have a T-shirt made. Get you a mug done.
Exactly. Yeah. Me and Questlove.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. The symbol thing. So most people would just think, and probably quite right, that I would walk past any brand that isn't a Meinl brand because I am, obviously obsessed with Meinl, which is fair enough. But one of the reasons I just went in that Meinl direction was because of the variety within that brand,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and also the artists that I seem to really warm to, and the sound and the style just all came from Meinl players.
Yeah.
But to be impartial, yeah, there are loads of I mean, I really like the darker, interesting sounds, the
Mm,
musical darker tones. I'm a softer player anyway. um I'm not into bright sounds. um and when I grew up, it was all Zildjian and Sabian. I mean, Phil Collins played Sabian, so, and he was lefty, still is lefty, and I just thought, well, I need a Sabian then, don't I? And
mm.
I had my 6, 8, 10, 12 concert toms on top of my
Yeah.
Beverly
So did
kit,
I, yeah.
uh, and I set them up lefty, and uh, I didn't realize that I'd be following in suit with the haircut as well later on. But I thought, well,
You're on
Phil's my
massively
man.
on trend now, Matt. You're massively on trend.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, I think the I've completely forgotten what I was saying. Where was I going with that? Oh dear. Bring
But
me back.
I was just I mean, the thing is, I know that you're a Meinl guy. I've always known that you
Symbols,
you
thank
you
you.
like you like your Meinl symbols. But and I've got some Meinl symbols and they're fantastic. I'm very loose when it comes to buy. I'm not a particular brand.
Yeah.
I'm not very loyal. So my kit, my hi hats are the new beat Zildjian's new beats that I got for my 14th birthday. That's how old they are. My ride cymbal was my dad's. My dad was a drummer, so my ride cymbal was my dad's K, a really old K. So like cymbals live as long as we do, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I had the new beats. I think I might have got them from a certain Mr. White
All right.
when I was 6, 17.
Okay.
The younger version of Mr. White.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I also had I think I had his, well, I've got his Ludwig snare as well, which is still in the family. Um, but yeah, the new beats I loved them. They were because in those days I wanted a crisp, sharp, um,
Yeah.
tight sound.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up sitting next to my uncle in the panto in the pit, watching him. Uh, People like uh, oh, Norman Wisdom and Linda Lasardi and
Hmm.
Lenny Henry and Keith Harris and all that sort of stuff were going on
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
always in
Absolutely.
the pit. And it was great for me to sit there watching. And he had these really tight, crisp sounding hats. And he had a Yamaha 8000 in Cobalt Blue, which he's still got. Um, and Yeah, so I loved all that. But my sort of my brand loyalty, as you might say, is more a combination of a bit of OCD when it comes to having things match. So I don't think I officially have anything, but well, probably. But I personally just like them to all match. Um,
Yeah.
and I get distracted if I'm looking at them and they're not matching. That distracts me. But it also limits you if you are sticking to one thing. Because, like, why should you? If you want to have that snare drum sound and you're not signed to any other particular endorsement, then
Mm.
have that sound. And I'm sure in recording studios when the cameras are off, the instruments that get chosen are the ones for the song, aren't they? Um,
Totally. When I was
and
doing sessions back in the day, when I was doing sessions, I would be driving. driving around with two whole drum kits in my car with about four different snare drums, all different weights and sizes and
Mm.
flavors, because you never knew when you got there, you never knew what you were going to need to, what sounds they would be. Can you replicate this? And you're having to go right, mix and matching a kit, mix and matching snare drums, heads, cymbals. It was, you had to have that kind of all sorts approach to creating sounds and stuff. That was kind of my baptism of fire in terms of doing sessions. But I mean, again, I came from big band, so I needed a hi hat that was. I was sitting next to the trumpet, so I needed a hi hat that was going to cut through that. And have that nice crisp, that really crisp sound. When you're sort of playing that offbeat, when you're playing syncopated, you're swinging in a kind of big band thing. So, yeah, just it's exciting now. I think that's one of the. I think for young drummers these days, I think they should take a moment and appreciate that. Like when I won't drag you into it, but when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of options in terms of sounds. But now the palette is huge.
Yeah,
And I think it's
absolutely.
so nice. It's so good for it's good for young drummers these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time. There's so much out there, and electronic hybrid, but acoustically, there are loads of brands. I mean, I'm a friend of mine's particularly into Bosphorus cymbals,
Mm.
and I've had a couple of those in the past. Um, and there's like the Zin ones that came back, didn't they? They've been
Well, they used to be a joke back in the day. They were the sort
yeah,
of joke. They were the joke Premier ones that you
yeah,
got with a Premier kit that you didn't really need or want. But
yeah.
yeah. But now they've come back, and I think technology's caught up, and it's good.
Mm.
It's good for that. So
I think super Zins were okay, but I think the regular Zins were almost local authority. Uh,
like
uh,
dustbin lids sort of knocked
yeah,
out
so
a
I was
bit.
going to, I was trying to think
Yeah,
of a way of saying that. Yeah,
yeah.
but, and I had plenty of those Zins. But yeah. Anyway, so symbols. So just actually before we get into like the rock school kind of stuff, so your background then, you've been playing as long as hip hop.
Yeah, yeah. I played. So I started playing drums when I was 5. My dad was a drummer, and was very keen. I think the phrase is very keen for me to play the drums. I haven't seen Whiplash because I can't because I go into this kind of like PTSD spiral. But he was very keen for me to play, so I practiced a lot. He would wake me up at when I was sort of 7 or 8. He would wake me up at 6 o'clock in the morning so I could do 2 hours on a pillow doing rudiments to build up my hand speed on a pillow, just to get that sort of, that sort of technique. Go to school, run home, get home for 4, do 4 hours until I went to sleep. So I did nothing but play the drums. Then went into county youth jazz orchestras and played lots of big band. Went into national youth jazz orchestras, did some small band stuff. Then migrated from that into doing some pit works and West End stuff. My drum teacher at the time was a guy called Phil James, who was sort of ex Nijo. He'd done some MDing work for kind of for Manhattan Transfer and people like that. So got to sit in on lots of stuff. I read quite well because I'd come through that sort of environment. So my reading was okay. Which meant I could work in sort of different environments. But anyway, when it did some pit work, really didn't like that. The concept of playing 9 shows a week, exactly the same thing,
Mm.
just wasn't my kind of thing. Doing Starlight Express the first time round on really old Simmons drums, 9 shows a week on those old Simmons, those hexagonal ones. Your hands would
SDS,
hurt.
the SDS 9.
Yeah, yeah, like hitting tabletops. Yeah, it's like playing pipe drums for like
We
two
used
hours
to
a
get
night.
Simmons. There was a thing called Simmons wrist, wasn't there? Which is
There was
basically tennis
exactly that.
elbow.
Exactly that. It was
Yeah,
Simmons Rich. So yeah, didn't
yeah.
enjoy that. So kind of got out of the sort of the sort of pit work thing. Did some sessions. Then started doing lots of live work. The live work then took me into sort of doing more sort of band leader work and music director stuff. So I did some shows as a musical director. And then just carried on doing that. Really worked around sort of around Europe, around the Middle East, putting bands into bigger events, which was fun. Really, really good times. Doing lots of different, lots of backing, lots of different acts, like you were saying. Lots of different acts on a weekly basis on a sort of rotation. So acts would turn up with a big chart, big book of chart, big pad, would pull out, 12 or 15 tunes. The band would have to, rehearse them in the afternoon, play them in the evening, that kind of environment. And then sort of later, I got into teaching when I was about just before I was 40, actually. And it was really a case of up until that point, I really did think that those who can do, those who can't teach. I wasn't really into the teaching thing at all. But I thought, well, I'll give it a go, see if I can just basically take on some teaching gigs with a view to not having to take some of those crappy gigs that I was taking that I wish I didn't take, those kind of ones. But started teaching and loved it. Got way more out of teaching than I did playing at that time in my life, and just did more and more of it. Got better at teaching, very similar in the way that I got better at drumming. I got around some really good people, learned everything I could from really good educators and really good teachers, copied all their good stuff like I did when I was playing the drums, and just made it my own, and then just gravitated to sort of doing that. So I did working for music colleges, running sort of diploma courses like your son's doing, those kind of things. Was always around a sort of graded syllabus doing teaching and things. I'd always used RSL purely because when I started teaching, I was looking at everybody's resources. I was looking at everybody's books and things, looking at some of the other awarding bodies' offerings at the time. I didn't really dig what they had in their books. They were a bit orchestral and a bit boring, a bit kind of school band type of things. Whereas the RSL charts were just a bit better. So just used them for teaching. And found that a lot of the sort of heavy lifting was done for me. The charts were pretty good. The backing tracks were pretty good. And I could teach from them, on sort of volume, and then kind of gravitated to the role that I'm in now, which is heading up the commercial side of RS or the commercial side of Rockschool, which is one of the companies now that sits under RSL Holdings, which is away from the awarding body side. The awarding body side is the grades that everybody knows in all the different instruments, including drums. My side of the business is more commercially focused on supporting drum teachers, educators, and schools to give them the real resources they can use to teach drums, to make sure they've got everything they need to put really good, engaging drum lessons together. The kind of lessons that I wish I'd had when I was younger. Back in the day, I used to have to write out the charts, probably like you did, Matt, that if I wanted to read off of a chart, I had to write the chart out myself. But then it kind of ate itself, because by the time I'd listened to the track, 700 times and then written out the chart, I wasn't reading it. I knew it off by heart by that point, which meant my reading was really good, but I never had access to lots of different charts, first sight charts. But these days we've got resources where drum teachers can really dig into notated music if they want to, if that's their style of teaching, or they can dig into some of the video content and help some of their visual learners. And really, what we're trying to do is create an environment for all teachers, but predominantly, obviously, my focus is drum teachers, just to give them all the tools they need to be able to teach, fun, engaging lessons that really do teach young drummers how to play the drums, not just get over the line in terms of exams, but really, really learn how to play the drums and develop a love of playing the drums, but that's based in, a sort of acquisition of skills and knowledge that they can carry with them, for the rest of their lives.
So that's that was a whirlwind there. That was quite a lot going on.
Sorry, yeah, there's a
lot,
lot.
lot to come back to, because I was going to come back to the West End stuff, but I'll hold on to that for a minute. So with regards to the lessons and making the lessons more accessible and providing all the resources that the teachers need, are you still very much on the following the grade route? Are you because obviously you're talking about the two different parts of the company, but you're still talking about following along the syllabus of the grades?
Yeah, I mean, the syllabus, yeah. The syllabus, I'm speaking for RSL. I mean, there's all the different awarding bodies all have a syllabus, and they're all great tracks, and they've got charts and things like that. So, from that point of view, it's a fairly level playing field. There's charts, there's tracks, there's play along, and you can take an exam. That's one level. For RSL's point of view, we've just raised that up a couple of notches in that what we're presenting for teachers and students now is a slightly broader way of learning. So yes, you've got the chart, but that's digitized. I can show you in a sec, but that's
Yeah.
digitized. So that's a movable chart. So it's sort of like you've got a tempo marker that moves you along the chart as the track's playing. There's an accompanying video that sits with the chart so that if somebody wants to learn by watching somebody play, we've curated that part. So rather than watching somebody who may or may not be getting it right, we've curated that to make sure that we've got, the video matched up with the chart. And then as you manipulate the chart, you're manipulating the video at the same time. So you can slow the chart down, the backing track and the chart down. You can speed it up. You can loop sections of it. You can take out the notation. You can put the rhythm counts in. Everything that you do to the chart, you're affecting the video at the same time. So if there's an 8-bar section that you need to learn and you need to loop it, and it's one of those repetition kind of exercises, you can loop the chart. So the chart will loop, but also the video will loop as well, so that you can work on that bit as many times as you need to. So it's an upgrade. So yes, that's to answer your question. Yes, that's steeped in the syllabus, the graded syllabus per se. But it also introduces lots of different stylistic choices that students can make. So if they want to take an exam, that's fantastic, and the facilities are there to take exams and graded exams. If they just want to learn songs and get good at playing stuff that's incrementally harder as they go up through a systematic system, then we've got that for them as well. So we're trying to cover them, make sure we've got everybody covered, so they can just learn in a way that's suited to their style of learning, rather than it just be the book, as it were.
Well, you're speaking to the right person here, because I have felt throughout my kind of history of, I mean, I've never really learned properly, or I mean, it depends on what properly is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to the book, and because of the age that we are, that we followed that kind of route. I had lessons at school. I never did a grade. I've not done a single grade.
Yeah, me
Um,
neither. For disclosure, me neither.
right. Well, that's also very interesting, because this is, we often speak on the podcast about grades. When we've had different people in, we've had people that have been students from ex-students from ACM. We had John Holbrook, who was a young drummer of the year
Hmm.
contestant for a few times. We've had a mate of mine, Sam, who I work with, who went through ACM um, and used to teach as well, and done his grades, and he used to teach
Yeah.
drums. And Lola, we had the other day, who's just starting her diploma at ACM. She's looking
Hmm.
to go to Berkeley.
Yep.
Um, and there's lots of conversations that come up about, and we always ask, did you do grades, or what do you think of grades and things? And one of the problems that I've always had with it is, it's like, you do it this way, and if you can't do it, you're a bit stuck. And all the things you've just been saying about the interactive stuff and the visual learners and all this sort of thing, it's like talking to me and thinking, I wish we had this, like when we were younger,
Yeah,
because maybe
exactly
by
that.
now I wouldn't have wasted so much time.
Well, no,
Uh,
exactly that. I mean, my as I said, I came through a sort of big band structure. So I was, when I went to Niger, I was young when I went to Niger. I was 14, and I was in a pool of 4 drummers that you would sit, and whoever had the chair at the time would take most of the rehearsal, and then Bill Ashton, who was running Niger at the time, would then call up the next drummer, and then you'd sit down, open up a chart that was like wallpaper, and then you'd be counted in and expected to play it. And I was in a pool of drummers with Mike Smith had the chair at the time. Then there was Mike Bradley, session superstar. Then there was Ian Thomas and me. So when your arse hit that seat, you had to be playing. you know, and at that point in time, no one would have cared if you were grade 8 or not. If you couldn't do it, you would have been hoiked off that drum seat in front of everybody, and then the next guy would have been put on. So it was a
mm,
quite a it's quite a pressurized environment. It's exactly the same with West End shows. Is that you don't get a never again with the West End show. You don't make mistakes.
mm,
If you make a mistake, you're going to get the never again. You're not going on that show again. So you have to be 100% right all the time. So in terms, when you map that against a graded syllabus, which like we didn't have, I didn't have that. I did subsequently take a grade 8 because I was teaching so much. I thought it's only fair. Kids would say to me, how did you get on with grade 8? And I'd be like, well, I didn't do it. And I felt like I should. And then I was pissed to find out where they thought I'd lost 2%. It's like, what do you mean 98%? I teach this stuff. What do you mean? Show me where the 2% was. But it was important for me to take an exam. But I know that it would have made my practice I would have learned to play the drums in a different way, possibly more regulated and certainly more systematic. Mine was very much like I would hear, I have every single Buddy Rich album. I would go and write out every single Buddy Rich, every single chart for every single track, and I would try and copy it and emulate it. That was my, that if you like, that was my grade. That was how I judged myself. But I only ever knew that I was good enough when I was in front of people with a big band playing. Whereas these days, young learners have got an opportunity to pressure test themselves in a systematic way, in a slightly more safer environment. They can go up through the grades, they can find out what it's like to learn some pieces to a proficient standard, and sit in front of someone that they don't know. So there's an element of pressure and have to perform, which is good. I think young drummers have got the ideal opportunity now to not only get better, but to get better in a sort of slightly safer environment that's not as pressurized, that they're going to learn additional things along the way. There's quite a lot of transferable skills that they're going to get from learning an instrument and putting themselves through that graded process. They're going to learn about resilience and, growth mindset and making mistakes and bouncing back. They're going to learn those things, which I think are important these days. We've got that. We should utilize it.
Yeah. So, do you think reading is? So this has always been a bit of a barrier for many people. So do you think it's possible to succeed without reading?
100%.
It does depend on what obviously area you go into. Do you know Tim Goodyear?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was with him last night in Maidstone at Drumwise's event. He had a little event there.
Yeah.
And he was doing a clinic kind of thing, playing a few of the songs from Hamilton and Frozen. So I was quite pleased to hear. And had a beautiful Sony kit, the same colour the one I sold. Dope. But yeah, the red oyster.
Let it go, Matt. Sorry, that was really bad.
I've got the white one. Oh, let it go. Well done. Oh, nice. Bit of an icebreaker. But yeah, so he was talking about reading and talking about the pressures of shows and things. He does a lot of shows and has lots of experience in that. And that was like it's a completely different world to me. It's the closest I ever got to it would be sitting next to my uncle watching him do the pantomime, and I always loved that. But so the question really is, like, you did answer it straight away, but can you be successful? I mean, you probably can't. Can you pass grade 8 if you can't read?
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, you won't expect. A lot of people don't expect me to say yes to that, but the thing is that if you believe that, like, there's two ways of taking graded exams anyway. Certainly for RSL, there's two ways of taking exams, which again is a fantastic step forward, because we know that there are performers, people that just want to play, and we also know there's people that do it as an academic study and they want to learn to read and to play technical exercises and to learn the rudiments and learn being able to sight read and stylistic studies and those kind of things. So for instance, for a grade 8 exam doing RSL, you can do it as a performance exam and just play 5 tunes.
Oh.
And what you're being judged on is you playing those 5 tunes against the written chart. But the examiner isn't checking to see if you're reading the chart. They're checking to see if you can play the tune in the right stylistic way, making minimum amount of mistakes. So in answer, yes, you can. And that's the beauty of the new system, is that we know that there are some people that just don't learn by reading, whether they've got some challenges to learning and it's just not their style of learning, or they don't particularly want to learn to read notation, but they want to learn to play the drums. There shouldn't be barriers to learning there. I don't think. I think there should be options to everybody. Everybody learns in a different way. The beautiful part of the system now is that you can learn orally, so you can learn by just listening, which is what we used to do, Matt. Before we could just dial up a video and see somebody doing it. But nowadays, you can learn orally, you can learn visually because the videos are there, or you can utilize a read write methodology and follow the notation. So nowadays, yes, you can go right through the graded syllabus, without an emphasis, not having an emphasis in reading the music per se. I think by osmosis, I think eventually you would start to recognize, you'd start pattern matching some of that, and what you see, you'd have a pretty good idea of. But I mean, I mean, if I don't, if you've ever, I don't know how much access you've had to like big band charts, but like when you see a big long, wallpaper piece of a big band chart, there's very little written on it. There's only the phrasing, and you start to see the phrasing as words anyway. So you see the big band phrasing is it's very there's a very short glossary of the sort of things that you're going to come across, and then you develop ways of playing those phrases. So when you're going when you're playing through a chart, especially like a bebop chart that's going to be fast, how much reading you're doing is limited. What you're doing is you're kind of you're scanning the music for things that you recognize, and then when you see a phrase, then you're hitting that phrase with the rest of the band. So your ability to read 16th notes, 32nd notes, in different time signatures is one thing, but if you haven't got a pair of ears, you're just not going to get anywhere.
God, it's really I often listen to podcasts and get inspired. I'm generally driving somewhere and I want to go on get back quickly and get on the kit and go and play or something. But I'm getting quite inspired by this episode myself. I'm
Good.
sitting here now, and because what you're saying to me is what I've wanted to hear for a long time from a person of experience and authority and position to sort of make a difference, make a change. It is that we're all welcome, and we kind of on this podcast we've always said it's run by amateurs or semi-pros, or we kind of joke about that once, but it's run by amateurs, for everyone, for amateurs and pros and what have you. It's not like, okay, like we're professional musicians, we can tell you how everything you need to know. It's not about us telling you, it's about including everyone and everyone feeling part, invited. And a lot of the people I speak to on a weekend, on a Saturday when I'm in the drum shop, a lot of people are my kind of age or parents of kids or whatever you, and it's the same old story. It's always very, well, I want to buy myself a kit now. Kids have moved out. I want to, I can't really read, but I just enjoy it. I'm doing it for myself. I was at a camp the other day. So a lot of the people had never played in front of people before. One of them had no desire to ever play in front of anyone. They just wanted to play at home. Had a decent rolling kit that he spent a bit of money on, and didn't have any intention of taking it outside the house. We all have different motivations and reasons for playing, but and unfortunately, we're going to hit the social media thing, because let's blame social media instead of MTV, because in our day everything was MTV's fault, and now it's social media's fault. But like this pressure that social media puts on us when we see someone doing something totally unachievable in our opinion, and then that can either inspire or put us off. It depends on our personalities.
And that's you're totally right. And that's again, that's where I would say that exams, learning an exam structure from a student or a teacher's point of view is hugely critical these days, because we live in an environment now where it's everything's on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat. So kids these days are only ever seeing the finished article. They're not seeing the journey. That's, using the journey word, but they're not seeing that. They're not seeing that travel to get to that position. They're seeing the end result, the end product, as if it's perfect and it only ever existed in that space. But we know the reality of that just isn't the case. Like people like snowboarders and skateboarders know it. They call it flirning. They learn through failure. They know for a fact that they're going to fall over. The first time they drop in on that half pipe, they're going to stack it, and they know it. And everybody accepts it, and it's part of the learning process. And I think what we've got certainly from a drums point of view is, you're going to make mistakes. That's fantastic. When I was teaching, I had a big sign behind me when I was teaching that this is exam central. This is mistake central station. I want all your mistakes to be here. Make all your mistakes in this environment, because there's an infinite amount of mistakes that you need to make to get something right. Start making those mistakes. The quicker you get in that process, the better drummer you're going to be. What you don't
Yeah.
want people is being frightened of taking a chance, not getting things right the first time. That's cool. That's how you get that resilience. That's how you get that growth mindset. And we have we are the advocates for that, for young people these days. That's why I say to people, like try, have a drum lesson, have some drum lessons, try and learn to play some stuff. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. That's okay. That's absolutely fine. What's important about it is the fact that you're gonna get over the mistake, and you're gonna find something about yourself. And I always say that to young kids when they're practicing. And when you start practicing, you're gonna find yourself. There's that lovely moment, especially when you're practicing on a practice pad. If you're practicing rudiments, and you're practicing either with a metronome, or you're just practicing, like singles, doubles, triple paradiddles, and you're just doing it round and round and round and round and round. It becomes such a zen thing, and you find yourself, your brain's drifting off. It's like meditation. And we've
Yeah.
all done
I
that. We've all
totally.
been playing, and you sort of go off, and you're thinking about something else, but your hands are still working. And that to me is that's in these days that's so rare a thing, but we've got that. We're the gatekeepers of that for all young people, because you can say, let's just play some drums, have some fun. If you make some mistakes, hey, don't worry about it, crack on.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to mention the young word. So you've said young people a few times there, but also older people.
For sure. I
I
mean,
mean,
you're right.
obviously you're talking about stuff in schools,
No, not necessarily. I mean,
but
when I was teaching, I had full classes of 6 drummers, all adults, all playing. Um, and what I used to love about those lessons was that um, those guys would turn up, guys and girls would turn up every week. They loved playing drums together. There was a sort of almost like a sympathetic resonance. They would, and that class was very demographically mixed. There was accountants, bank managers, out of work people. Everyone was in the same room, and there was a real just a level playing field. But everybody was playing the drums, making the same mistakes. We were overcoming the same challenges, and for me that was hugely important. So yeah, I think we all. I say young people because obviously as teachers we are,
yeah, yeah,
the sort of gateway to that. But certainly, I mean, I know that I'm still coaching a guy now that has lessons with me, and we check in. He's still learning. He's has no desire to be a in fact, I won't name check him, but he knows who he is. And we when we're practicing something, we only have our sort of barometer is, are we chateau ready? Because every year he's got some money, and he hires a chateau in France, and he invites all his friends with a load of kit, and they all just sit and play rock and roll for a week. And if we're learning a tune, he'll go, "Am I chateau ready?" And I'm like, "Yep, you're absolutely chateau ready for that one." So you know what I mean? Everyone's learning for their own needs and their own desires, and that for me is the best part of what we do as musicians and educators. It's like everyone's learning for themselves, doing what they want to do. So yeah, young people certainly, older people definitely, and everybody in between.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, at the camp I was at, that was it. I will shout out. It was Will Daly's camp. I mentioned him in the last podcast as well because it
Hmm.
was my first camp. But everyone was very similar age, um, and the people that I come across in the Mike's lessons thing, a lot of them are very similar age. I mean, there's a lot of older people. There's quite a big mix in that area from ages. Um, but yeah, I mean, and when you go to the drum show, I mean, you see it, don't you? You see so many different people, and like you might assume that dad is taking the boy
No.
or the girl, but actually, um, boy and dad, or boy and daughter, or sorry, get myself in the mucking fuddle there. Dad and daughter, mum and daughter, um, they're actually both drummers. Like when I go with
Yeah,
Arch, we're both drummers. He's there as a photographer
we
most of
do.
the time. But
And we do see a lot of that. One of the nicest things is that we know, because of the system that we got going on now, we know that there's we can sort of highlight the fact that there are lots of those kind of lads and dads kind of learning combinations, or mums and daughters learning together. And again, that wouldn't have existed possibly a few, certainly 10 years ago. That wouldn't have existed. Now it's because it's accessible to everybody. We've broken down some of those barriers, and I think that that's hugely important, certainly for what we do as drummers. It's because drums, you can, drums is always that funny thing, isn't it? You learn to play the most complicated things, and then to play drums for a living, you don't play anything. You only play four on the floor.
yeah,
You never get to
Yeah,
play the complicated. I spent my life. I spent 8 hours a day for most of my life practicing drums, so I could play the most complicated stuff I could find, so that to earn money, I was playing four on the floor with two and four on the snare drum.
yeah. And I mean, I remember seeing my mate Alan on telly playing, Wonderwall, and thinking, I know he's so much, he can do so much more than he needs to do on this song. But at the end of the day, I suppose it's better to have a level up here, but only need to be here, rather than have a level here and then reach up to here, which is probably where I find myself
It's,
sometimes. I find,
but I think it's Gadd. It's Steve Gadd all day long. Do you know what I mean? It's like he'll play nothing and it's amazing, and then play something that you're like, what was that? What just happened? And then it suddenly, I don't know, opens up a whole different world of playing, and it's exciting. Certainly for younger drummers, when you start, when they've gone down one path and they think they've got it, and then you say, especially with drummers, if you say to them, well, have you ever explored, linear playing? Have you looked at David Garibaldi? And they're like, who? And you show them some David Garibaldi grooves, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my god, how does that work?" And how does he make that sound? And then you strip it all down and say, "Right, nothing's playing with anything else anytime during
same
that bar.
time.
Make it funky." And suddenly you've opened up this whole different way of playing, and it's exciting to watch them go. Well, I want to learn that. It's the I know kung fu. It's like, I want to learn that. Show me that
Mm.
thing. Oh, that looks amazing. And I think there's always those doors. As we go on, we just open those doors as we go, and there's always something new to learn. And even some of the Cajun rudiments, the sort of Stanton Moore thing, when you sort of taking some rudiments and turn them inside out, swing them, put them across different drums, and suddenly you've got a really funky, New Orleans groove that's based on paradiddles and inverted paradiddles. But if ever you struggle with the students to get them to learn paradiddles, just show them that.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
left, right, left, right, left, left. Show them that, swing it. All of a sudden, you've got the funkiest groove that's ever been played by a human.
yeah. I saw him at the UK drum show in Manchester, I think, Stanton. Um, he's great. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube of him. And we had a Cajun band, a Cajun club. Well, we didn't. My girlfriend, my wife's mum and dad have a Cajun club. They still do it sometimes, I think. Um, but like they used to run it. And I used to do the sound and everything. And people from New Orleans would come over. People
Mm.
from Louisiana, mostly rather, Lafayette areas, and Holland and France and other non American bands. But some of these massive bands would come over that filled stadiums over there, and they were in this club in South London, and it was quite fun watching them doing it, because actually it was quite simple. But then when I tried to do it, I thought, well, it's actually not that simple, because it's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of four on the floor, but this is a completely
Mm.
different world, and it's all very well. You can hold it together, and then you do a feel, and I get lost, and I'm back on the four on the floor again. It's like, quick shit, get back. But yeah, I had a little go of a Cajun song the other day when you mentioned that. It just made me think of that. Um, yeah, I'm pretty inspired. So you said you've got some videos to show us, or you can
Yeah, I mean, I'll share screens with you. So
share a
basically,
screen.
what's
For those of you
what
listening, sorry about this. I'm not going to cut it out.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Come and
If
watch it
this
on
is just
YouTube.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, have it on YouTube.
Not when you're
Actually,
driving.
but yeah, and then I'll tell you about the discount code that we're going to give Drumshed listeners
Yeah.
access to this at a discount anyway afterwards. Okay, Matt. So if I show screens now, what you'll see is on the screen, you'll see that we've got a chart. We've got the chart for Changing Man. This is obviously Steve playing the Changing Man. If I start the track, you'll see that the track plays, and you've got a tempo marker that takes you through the notation as we're playing. Everything that's happening on the chart, Steve is replicating in the video. If we wanted to stop it and then loop a section of it, we can loop these 8 bars. We can then play those 8 bars. As those 8 bars are looping, Steve's video is going to loop at the same time, which means from a learner's point of view, from a student's point of view, they can just work through sections as they need to sort of really get a handle on what's going on, and then being able to sort of just repeat over and over again. You can see that from the video's point of view, we can make the video a bit bigger, or we can make it smaller. Doesn't really matter, whatever suits the lesson. We can either flip it over for left-handed for you, Matt, or flip it over back to right-handed. Um, so you can see that it's really kind of usable for teachers and for students alike. This is a different track. This is me playing one of the grade 6 pieces. The last one was Steve playing a grade 4 piece. This is me playing through a grade 6 piece, a bit more involved. You'll see on the chart that I've put a rhythm count. This is something that's available for tutors or students to do to the chart, so to help them play through it. And again, we can change it to left-handed for left-handed learners, or right-handed. We can put the video on top, and we can make it bigger if we want to. So it's just the chart and the video. So you can see that it's really kind of usable for all learners. And it's a really great way of learning. All of the tracks in all of the grades, right from debut up to grade 8, are like this. Obviously, so anything they do to the chart, it will manifest itself onto the video. Down here, you'll see that you can slow it down. So you can slow it down in sort of 10% increments, or you can speed it up in 10% increments if that's particular. You want what you want to do. Drummers love playing stuff slightly faster if they can. So it just makes a slightly more fun kind of element of learning to play a track. You can lean into the chart if you want to, or you can just go with the video, whichever suits you.
Thanks for that demonstration.
No problem.
From your site, that was the first time we've ever done anything like that. So hopefully it worked out all right.
Yeah, well, you can see that. I mean, it is a very powerful tool, both for teachers and for students. It's like if you're teaching from it, then all of the heavy lifting is done for you. The chart is there, the video is there. You can slow the chart down, you can slow the track down, you can take the drums out, put the drums back in. You've got the video. You saw that, for lefties, you can flip the video over straight to left-handed. I mean, whether you're teaching your left-handed learners either to play open-handed on right-handed kit or left-handed, you've got that option. And there's just lots of options there. Obviously, the grade 6 track that I showed you that I'm playing, it's a bit more involved. There's a bit more kind of 16th note action, which is why I've dropped in the rhythm counts over the top, which again is an option. You can put it in or take it out, saves you having to write over a chart. Steve's track that he was playing, Changing Man, a bit more, it's a simpler track in that it's eighth notes and it's quarter notes and eighth notes, but again it's a nice track to play along and follow a chart so that you get used to that sort of pattern matching as to what you're doing on the kit and what's happening on the chart. So, and I think, it gives options for students and teachers to learn in a way that just it's suited to them. It's open to everybody. It's really kind of like, that you can dive into it as much as you want. There's lots of, I mean, it's called Rockschool, but there's loads of different styles. There's loads of jazz in it. There's loads of funk. There's some Latin stuff. There's even, there's some reggae and some sort of broken beat stuff. There's a lot in there, so should be something for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, my boy started off on another provider of grades, and did one of those, and then he got a bit fed up with the he was less inspired. I think we thought it was a bit out of date, or it was a little bit the tracks weren't that inspiring. And then he went to Rockschool, and he did 3, 4, 5, and 6. And he stopped at 6 because he just wasn't. I think he was all graded out at that point.
He would have got UCAS points for grade 6, though. Wouldn't he?
He got UCAS points for 6. Now, at the time, bearing in mind that when he was doing 6, it was a few years ago. He did 2 of those through lockdown, through the the video submissions.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I didn't think for 1 minute he was going to take his career further, go to do a degree or anything like that. So he was never interested in going to uni until we went and saw ACM, and then he was quite keen to go and see to consider that option. And when it came to like the admission side of it, I did not appreciate that the UCAS value that the grades had. So he got, I don't know, did he get 10 points or something for for six.
Yeah, I think it's. I
I
think
think you've got to
I'd
merit
need.
with six.
Yeah, I'd need to check this. I think for a distinction at grade 8, it's about 30 UCAS points, which is almost the equivalent of a B at A level. And I always said to all the students that I taught, that's the reasons for doing grade 8. There's many reasons for doing grade 8. It tops off what you've learned, but also, with the UCAS tally, when you're going for university places, students, when they've got their kind of required grades, that everybody might have the required grades, but you might be the only one who can play drums. And for a university, sometimes they want someone with a bit more, a bit more interest, a bit, something a bit left field, a bit sort of new, that's going to bring, extra stuff to a university. So it's worth doing, if nothing, if not just to benchmark yourself, but I mean, if you can gain some extra UCAS points as well, then it's all for the good, really.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, to be fair, like he's I've got the grade 8 book behind me because I've just literally bought it. So I want him to well, he's gonna have a look at it because he even though he might not necessarily need it, he might need the extra points later on, depending on what he does.
Yeah,
But I also said, do it while your brain's open. You know, your brain's open for business right now. In your age, you're 19 years old. My
totally.
brain is shut down.
But interestingly, though, Matt, I mean, like, it's what's funny about it is that obviously as you go up the grades, so certainly from 6 to 8, there's less written. It's less of a prescriptive approach, and there's more slash bars because what we want is we want to be pulling out that sort of stylistic expression. Interestingly, I went a couple of years ago. I went to China to teach for 3 weeks to teach drums to some of their advanced students. And the challenge there was that they'd only learnt the chart and they'd only learnt the backing track. So even the slash bars, the teachers had written out exactly what was played on the backing track. So for examiners, they were seeing exactly the same thing played exactly the same way for every single song. There was no free expression. There was no improvisation per se. And my job was really to go there and try and explain to them, that where the broader boundaries are, that they can start to explore some different options in terms of, solos or, like fill structure or stuff. And it was quite a challenge because it's not something that's culturally, they're used to, and it's really sort of broadening that understanding of what you can, even though the chart is it's a written chart, you're playing to a backing track, you've got so much expression there. And I always say to, and it's a sort of, it's a message to everybody really that, don't be put off by doing some of the higher grades because there's much more free expression that you can bring to the chart. And what examiners want is they want you to be playing the track your way. Certainly with it, against the written notation, but where there are slash bars and solos, they want to really hear what those players can play and what they can bring to the music, from their stylistic choices. So there's a lot in there for everyone.
Well, I want people to be inspired to, well, obviously to play the drums and to learn and to get better and to enjoy it, whatever. Um, but like, people come into the shop and we have this discussion about a lot of them are younger people with their parents, and they're coming in and they're asking about, or they're just starting, just starting drums, want to buy a kit, want to buy an e-kit generally. Um, and So I asked them about if they're going to can do grades, and they're not sure. And I think at the younger age, grades are important to have something to focus on and a reason to do it, and
Yeah,
something to latch on to, like a skeleton to actually follow. They need that structure, maybe. Otherwise, it's just like, what's the point of this? I'm just playing along to music or whatever it might be. I mean, there is a point. That's fun. That's an element of fun. But I think the grade part of it gives them something to work towards.
it does.
Uh,
It's purely a
and when
benchmarking process. Yeah,
when Archie was learning, I wanted to make sure that I took him places so he could see. We're still learning. We're all learning, but I took him to gigs and to um, events and drum shows and clinics and things because I wanted him to see the purpose, what it could lead to, what type of role you could do as a job. There's so many jobs available, not available, but there's so many roles that are in the music business that may not be necessarily playing the drums, but they might be to do with the drums or recording drums, or there's so many different, or musical instruments. There's so many different areas, and now obviously social media and photography and videos, and it's all very great. I know it's not. I know it's going off the drums thing, but
No, I think
to me,
it's
it was never like you will be a drummer.
no, I think it's related. Honestly, I had no intention of becoming a musical director, and that's kind of what I ended up my playing career doing. And then I certainly never, it was very late in life that I really considered myself good enough to be a teacher. And then it's only by trial and error that I suddenly found that I loved teaching. Um, and got into that later in life. And I think what music gives us as people is we can see that there's a process. There's always a process of learning involved. So if you allow yourself to learn something new and allow those natural, ebbs and flows to be there, to make the mistakes, pick yourself up, learn what you can, carry on. Um, there's tons to learn for years, and we grow out of that learning process rather than it just being a blunt sort of like learning one skill or learning one track or one groove or whatever. There's so many transferable things that we're going to get from it.
Yeah, and even just the inclusiveness of being taking part in school, because he hated school, and
Mm.
a lot of kids that I speak to, a lot of the parents, they say really not academic, really not getting on at school, and actually the drumming thing is the only thing that they're actually paying an interest in,
Yeah,
and if that helps them
yeah,
belong to something and belong to something that's positive, because we all know schools can, or young people can belong to the wrong things because they want to belong. I mean, I'm not going down the sort of the gang side of things, but that's a sense of belonging, and maybe rather than going belong into something that's negative, you could belong in the music world. And I think that's, I'm quite strong about that, because my wife's in education, she's a teacher. I, my little boy is still, he's teaching at the school as well. He's classroom assistant, and does that as well as his drumming and stuff. And I've had some, and my day job is dealing with some of the negative side of things, so things go wrong in
mm.
society. So, like, I think it's nice to see a positive influence going, belonging into music, and channeling your attention to something creative rather than not,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
yeah, I'm
when we're onboarding new teachers into the Rockschool kind of associate program, and we're doing tutor training, we're at length to explain to newer tutors and newer teachers that what we're teaching in music is so transferable in lots of different aspects of life. Again, if you're teaching in a group setting, you've got an opportunity for young people that don't necessarily interact with other young people outside of school to interact, to work together, to work as a group. You've got opportunities for leadership. You can play follow me leader games. I used to love kind of working in a group of sort of 3 or 4 drummers where I'd be playing we'd be playing a groove, and then every 4 bars I would drop out, and then someone would do a fill, and then the next person would do we'd play another 4 bars, and then the next person would do a fill, and you'd work it in kind of 4 bar chunks, and you're getting people to listen, to work together, to sort of collaborate. And they're really important things. There was a huge movement away from sort of 3 R's education a while back to this more sort of 4 C's approach to education, which is sort of creativity. Well, we've got that as musicians. Collaboration, well, that's music. Communication, again, that's music. And critical thinking, and we're always critically thinking about what we're doing as musicians. Was that good? Could we do it better? How would we do it better? What would make it slightly funkier, swing more, whatever? And we've got all of those 4 bases covered. So I think there's a huge transferable package that anyone can get out of learning music. It doesn't, like I said, the end game doesn't have to be grades. It doesn't have to be a professional career. But once you've found yourself in that practice kind of regime, you're going to be a better person. You're going to find yourself, and you're going to find out things about yourself. And I think that's hugely powerful, especially these days.
Yeah, yeah, it's really important. I mean, the social skills, the social interaction, I think is music is such a massive thing. Luckily, it always has been, and hopefully, it always will be. But
And I think with drums,
it's
drums
very exciting.
particularly,
I love
I
it.
think drums definitely, I think is one of those things where, because, we all know that to play the drums, there's a physical element to it. There's a physical effort, to play certain things, whether you're playing faster or more intricate, or, you're doing independence exercises or whatever. There's an element where you have to overcome yourself. You have to literally, you're working with yourself to get to that end goal. And it's the things that you learn through that process are so important. We should embrace it as educators. We should embrace it and get people to try it out, have a go, and see what they can do with it. I think it's an exciting time for drummers and to learn to play the drums. And that's why I'm so excited about the sort of the system that we've created now, because it is open to everybody. Everybody can kind of get themselves a riff subscription. They can have access to all of those ebooks, all of the charts, and just try some stuff out. It's not ring fenced to any kind of grade or any style. It just means everybody can have a go.
I've really enjoyed this chat, and I think we'll probably have some more chats off air.
Yeah.
And we talked about, obviously, on the video you had Steve there.
Yep.
And I'll have to mention the fact that we've got our Steve White evening with Steve White on the 4th of December down at the Hive Rooms in Hawley.
Uh-huh.
There's still some tickets left, and thankfully Yamaha via Drum Shack have supported us by giving us a 14 by 6.5 steel snare, stage custom snare.
That's lovely.
It's going to be in the raffle, and we've had a package delivered today from Dino via Yamaha, the protection racket box we've got, and in there we've got a selection of stick bags to also give out.
Lovely.
As part of the raffle. So thank you to Protection Racket for supporting that.
That is brilliant.
And this will be my first event.
He's very much part of he features in the grade 4 syllabus on our syllabus. He's doing all the videos, so all the videos that sit within our without the system, he's on the videos of those. When we launched Rockschool, my side of the business, we went to Abbey Road and did some recording there. Steve kindly played drums for us on that one as well. So he's a very good supporter of what we do. As our Yamaha, we've got a great deal with Yamaha now. So anybody that's within our associate system gets a bit of affiliate code and are able to buy Yamaha equipment at a discounted price, which is kind of good. And on the subject of discounts, remember, we'd like to offer any of your listeners or viewers a 30% discount for 3 months off of a Riff subscription. If they just use the code DRUMSHED30, they'll get 30% off of the Riff subscription, so they can dial up all of these fantastic tunes that sit within our syllabus and have a go and see if it's right for them.
I really appreciate that. I think that might be the first time. It's a lot of firsts today. I think that may have been the first time we've ever had a discount code, especially for Drumshed podcast listeners. So
yeah, Drumshed30.
Thank you very much. That was Drumshed30.
I'll put all the links. I'll send you all the links over. Yeah, it's rockschool.io. So it's literally just rockschool.io. If you follow the links, I'll send you all the links, Matt, so that everyone can sign up and get themselves a Riff account with the discount code. And they'll, like I said, they'll have access to all of the material. And that's just not just in drums. That's everything. So they have good guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, vocals, both guitars, ukulele, violin, trumpet, trombone, saxophone, the whole thing.
Wow, fantastic! It's been really, 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 really nice to catch up. And I'm sorry it's taken so long.
That's all right. No, we're both busy, so that's
an
absolutely fine.
Pleasure. I'm sure we might need to do some more stuff together in the future.
Well, we'll be we're going to the European Drum Show in April. We're going to be in Frankfurt at the European Drum Show. And we're going to be doing some, rather than being in the downstairs in the noisy bit, we're going to be in the education part. And I'm going to be doing some presentations around becoming a drum teacher and using the resources. So if anybody's over in Europe in April and fancies dropping in and say hello, then come see us.
Well, so look, I've just booked my flights to go to the Minor Festival, and I wouldn't miss that for the world. I've been saying I need to go to the European Drum Show as well, and I haven't worked out how to do that yet. But I was so gutted last time. I was like FOMO, but I need to be there, and I just need to get there. And I just need to work out how to get there. So I could go. Yeah, well, come and see us. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be upstairs in the education bit. I'll certainly come and see you. If I get over there, I will come and see you. Fantastic. All right, brilliant. I can't pronounce it. Can you pronounce it?
No,
Friedenstadt.
I think that's better than I would do. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, this has been fantastic. So thank you very much,
You're
and
very
thanks
welcome.
for your support with the code for our listeners as well,
No, that'd be great.
and for all that you're doing. And I'm really pleased to hear education moving forward away from Baroque and away from
Yeah,
sorry, the A-level music or whatever still got Baroque in it and stuff like that. It's like, come on, it's not history, it's music. Um, but I'm really like the fact that you're um pushing and inviting and including people that are different type of learners, because I
yeah,
would consider myself as one of them probably.
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
Lovely.
brilliant.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Matt. Lovely to see you. And thanks everyone for all your support. And like I said, if you need anything, give me a shout. The links will be with Matt. My email address is very easy. It's alex@rockschool.io. So if you do need anything, just give us a shout.